this mic. Are you ready for this?
I'm as ready as I can be.
Good man.
Ask him again in a couple hours.
Interesting. So that my speaker is not recording. But are you hearing me okay? She's checking those too.
Okay. Check 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Better to assess now than an hour into the meeting.
I can read, yeah. At least the text is being.
Right. Just a little bit of a lag on the YouTube, so we'll have Chelsea double check, make sure that we're hearing me fill the void.
I can hear it. It's a little quiet, but it could just be something.
Okay.
Everybody's not talking very loud right now, so.
Okay, so we're going to get started? Okay, excellent. Well, thank you all for being here for the second budget committee meeting of 2022. Today is April 20th of 2022 and it's 5:30. And we're first going to get started with the Urban Renewal Agency budget. But we're first going to get started with a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry, not a roll call vote, a roll call.
Or just a roll call.
We're anxious.
A simple here will suffice. Jessica Andrade.
Present.
Ruth Causey. Here. Matt Lehman.
Here.
David Lowe.
Here.
Teresa Nielsen.
Here.
Jazz Jones.
Here.
Julie Connor.
Here.
Chris Costello.
Here.
Candy Cates.
Here.
Spencer Irwin.
Here.
Christopher McMorrin.
Here.
Van Hunsaker.
Here.
Jeff Sheminsky.
Here.
And Catherine Bisco was prearranged absent. She's at LOC.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So today, for the Urban Renewal Agency, we're first going to elect a chairperson. Then we're going to go through I'm just gonna go through the agenda real quick. Do approval of our minutes, look at the budget message, look at the budget documents and discuss relevant changes, and then review the general budget and then respond to any questions. But first we're going to elect the chair. And typically this position we prefer it to not be a city councilor or the mayor, but a member of the public. So but yeah, we will solicit nominations and then have a vote if it's more than one nomination. Councilor Lowe.
I'd like to nominate Chris Costello as chair.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Do we have any other nominations? Seeing none, Chris Costello, would you be interested and willing to serve as chair?
I would be willing, yes.
Great, thank you. With that, do we need to actually do a vote?
We should do a vote for the chair. Yeah.
So with that, we'll go ahead. All in favor of Chris Costello serving as chairperson for the Urban Renewal Budget Committee, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay. Seeing none, congratulations, Chris. Thank you, and thank you very much for being willing to serve the city in this manner. So, so with that, you can go ahead and go through the budget, or through the agenda.
The agenda. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the May 12th, 2021 budget meeting for the Urban Renewal Agency. Those are attached to your agenda.
And I'll just add, you didn't have to have been present at the meeting in order to review the minutes and vote on the minutes. So if you're a new member, that's okay. If you're here present, you're on the committee, you can vote on the minutes and any other motions that come before you. So
Thank you.
Good.
Counselor Causey.
I move that the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee minutes of May 12, 2021 be approved as presented.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
thank you, Teresa, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. It's been moved and seconded that the minutes of the May 12th, 2021 Urban Renewal Budget Committee it has been moved and seconded. We will take voice vote or hand vote,
Either way,
either way. Okay, we'll take hand vote for now. So, all in favor of approving the Urban Renewal Agency budget minutes from last meeting, raise your hand, right or left.
I wasn't supposed to vote on it, right, because I wasn't there?
You can.
You can. I wasn't there either, but I'm gonna vote because everybody else is voting, so, you know. Use your own conscience. Okay, any opposed? Jessica, I forgot to look and see if you were raising your hand. I'm assuming
she did.
you are. Good, okay. The minutes are approved as presented to us unanimously. With that, we will go on to number 4 of the agenda, which is the Urban Renewal Agency budget message. This is towards the back of the budget book, underneath the yellow tab. Urban Renewal Agency, page 97. And anyone need time?
I can speak to it briefly. It's got my name on it,
Thank
I
you.
guess, so I'll address it. I'm not going to read it for you word for word, but I will just summarize. Urban renewal, we've been saving, and kind of hiding the nuts away, I guess, waiting for the right time to come forward, and finally we're here. So this year, we're gonna start spending some of this money that we've been saving. You know, generally speaking, what would is too much, but generally speaking, with urban renewal, you start an urban renewal agency that has a list of big projects you wanna do. You borrow much money, you do the big projects, and then you collect money from the area to pay off the debt. And then once the debt's paid off, then you sunset the urban renewal area, then it goes away. In Philomath's case, we had big dreams. We had a big project we wanted to do, the streetscape project, and a list of other projects. We essentially expanded the urban renewal area and the plan. It was a $4 million plan, and it got increased. So we substantially increased it with the idea of doing a streetscape project and some other projects in there. So they got approved. We didn't borrow much money to do it because we needed some ODOT approval, we needed some matching funds, we needed a lot of matching funds. And so we've been working ever since really the expansion of the urban renewal plan. And during that time, we've just been saving this money. Instead of paying off debt for a big project that we did 10 years ago, we've been saving this money for the last 10 years. And here we are. We did do a big project with the water. It was kind of phase 1 of the streetscapes. We replaced all the water in the sewer lines on Main Street and Applegate Street. That was a $3 million project. And so, you know, we did spend some cash there, and that went towards our total indebtedness. But this year is really where we're going to see, and you'll see it in the budget as we go through it here briefly, a lot of money is going to come out of urban renewal. Next year, we may look to borrow some additional money in order to hit our max, and then the rest of the time we'll just be paying off that debt until it closes. This urban renewal district is going to have a much shorter payoff time than what it would have been had we done the project 10 years ago, right? It would have taken us 15 years to pay it off. Instead, we've saved, we're going to do the project, and it's only going to be a few years to get this paid off. So maybe more detailed than what you needed, but you know, it's really functioned all of the same. We've been gaining interest on the money instead of paying interest on the money that we borrowed. But we have done it just a little bit backwards just because of the uniqueness of the ODOT project, right? So again, this year you'll see a lot of money spent. The numbers are in here and how much the city's contributing. ODOT's contributing quite a bit of money. We were able to get some additional funds from CAMPA, which is the region transportation dollars that come down from the state for our region. We got some money dedicated from those funds. And were supposed to go out for bid end of July. We were end of May. ODOT's asked us for a 2-month bump so they can have a little bit more time. So end of July, we'll go out for bid on this project. Construction started probably September, into October, and it'll be about a 18 to 20-month project. And so we'll be spending this down. So it's going to look a little bit different. Next year's urban renewal budget is going to look significantly different than what this year's is going to look like. But that was kind of big picture. The budget message for urban renewal this year is it's time to spend the money. It's time to spend it.
I'm Mike Brzezinski. I'm the finance director, if I haven't met y'all. Been here for, I think, 2 months. I'm not sure yet. I don't even know where I am. Anyway, I just came from Newport, and the budget process we used there was pretty efficient. And so what I wanted to do is go over the process. We'll start with the urban renewal. Chris basically gave you a great recap of what's going on with the urban renewal. But, you know, that's a small peg in this whole project here. I call this a project. You guys call it a budget. It's a project plan. Anyway, what we did in Newport is we went page by page by page, and we asked the committee for questions. What do you want to know about this budget? Because that way we can come back to you, we can give you the answer to that question, and we can be more efficient for you. We can tell you what's going on a little bit quicker instead of us, we all come up here and tell you this. You might miss something, and that does happen. So what we'd like you to do, it's new, it's hard, just ask the question. If you got a comment, please turn it into a question, almost like Jeopardy. I hate to use that, but it's kind of fits sometimes. Then that way we can assign it to the director in charge of that particular budget. They can give you an explanation, a full in-depth explanation of what's going on. And so tonight we're just going to just talk about it. We're going to take your questions. No talking really about that. Just give us your question. Let's keep moving. Let's see if we can get through this whole book in one night. That's the goal. And so the first one we're going to start out with, this is the smallest one, is the general fund of the URA. As Chris alluded to, a lot of the money that comes from here is from the tax increment financing, or tax increment, really not, the financing comes from it. You've got a small loan going against it right now. That's URAs are nothing but debt and construction. That's pretty much their job. They don't own the asset, the city does. So the first page we're going to go through is page 99. And Chris, what I plan to do for each one of these is go over, tell you what I've gotten from the staff, because Ken had some increases within his police budget, Kevin had some within Public Works, Chris had some in some of his, and I had some in mine. So what I would like to do is I will give you a kind of an overview of what I have, any of the increases, and so you know what's going on. Then I'm going to turn it back to you. Okay, and then you can run the show from there. General fund, we're probably going to go, I may just go through it real quick with all the different departments, then that way I'll turn it back to you, and then you can run page by page. Okay, so with the URA, the biggest thing that we have is always the tax increment. It's the property tax. It's a mature URA. It grows about 3 or 4 or 5% each year. This year I'm thinking 6%. Interest, we're still not getting much interest. Even though they're cranking it up on the Fed level, we're not seeing it here at the state level yet. The cash carry forward we're going to have is 2.4 to start with, so our total revenue is going to be 3.2 to begin with. We have $46,000 in admin things that we have to pay for, and then the project. $202.5 million is what we're going to be given to. I'm not quite sure of the mechanism how this one worked. In Newport, we gave the money to ODOT, and they did the project for that South Beach project. I don't know if anybody saw that on the other side of the bridge. I haven't even seen it yet, so I worked there. But we did like Philomath has done. We socked the money away, and when it was time to do the project, we did the project. So right now, what we got in this budget is the 2.5 for the road project. And that doesn't include the state monies yet. And then the $300,000, that's the bioswale. And then we have the debt payment, and that's pretty much it. Then the $52,000 left over, that has got to be set aside for the first interest payment coming up in November until I get taxes, so I get paid out. So that's pretty much it, Chris.
Okay. Thank you for that in-depth review. Does anyone have any questions in regards to page 99 that they would like to pose tonight?
I'm gonna write them down, so.
Yep.
I think Ruth and everybody's gonna help keep track of those, so whatever y'all want to do, not you, Ruth, the other Ruth.
There's too many Chris's and too many Ruths in this whole thing.
Sorry, Chris's And again, I don't anticipate a lot of questions here, so don't feel like you gotta search for one. This
Right.
is pretty straightforward. Again, we'll get to other funds, there'll be more questions.
Right.
But if anything comes to mind, now's the time to get it, but if not, don't feel bad. We got plenty of document to go through still.
Right. And also, I'm sorry, Dan.
Go ahead.
One thing, turn the page on page 100. I tried to give you a little bit of what I know in case, if you have a question on it. Anyway, go ahead, Dan.
Well, it's not really in a sense a budget question, but the storm drain project, the bioswale, I assume that is, where's that gonna be?
That's that $300,000.
I don't, that's what I meant, I just wanna know where it's gonna be.
Physically located is what you're meaning.
South 9th Street.
Not,
You
okay.
know where that is.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay. Other questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we will move on.
That pretty much wraps it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, that's the end of my pages.
And so we basically, we've responded to, we're on number 8, believe it or not.
Yeah.
That's how quick URAs are. They go fast.
Okay, so with no further business, do I just,
Let me just check in real quick with the city recorder. Ruth, did we have anybody sign up to comment or provide any comments?
Public comment.
No, we did not.
Okay.
Urban Renewal Agency.
So that covers number 9, so we can go ahead and adjourn.
okay, so with no further business, I don't need
Nope, you can just adjourn.
I can just adjourn, yeah. Don't need to have anybody. So with no further business, the meeting for the Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned for 2022. And we will,
And then I think I'll just take over briefly.
Okay.
And, okay. So with that, we will now call to order our budget committee meeting for the city of Philomath for April 20th of 2022. And we'll first get started with a roll call.
Jessica Andrade,
Present.
Ruth Cossey,
Here.
Matt Lehman,
Here.
David Lowe,
Here.
Teresa Nielsen,
Here.
Chaz Jones,
Here.
Julie Connor, Chris Costello,
here,
Candy Cates,
Here.
Spencer Irwin,
Here.
Christopher McMorrin,
Here.
Dan Hunsaker,
Here.
Jeff Szyminski,
Here.
and Catherine Bisco is still at LOC.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here. First order of business is that we will elect a chairperson for the budget committee. And same process as previously, I'm happy to accept nominations. Councilor Love?
Well, I'd like to nominate Chris Costello.
Wonderful. Have a nomination for Chris. Are there any other additional nominations? Seeing none. But do we have a second on that nomination?
I'll second.
So nomination made by Councilor Lowe, seconded by Councilor Nielsen. All in favor of Chris Costello serving as chair for the budget committee, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please raise your hand, say nay. Great, motion carries. Chris,
Okay.
congratulations, and thank you so much again for being willing to serve.
Just connect just real quick. Just a little bit of housekeeping, which you probably should have at the beginning of the last one. So we didn't put waters out just because people are bringing their own and with COVID and stuff still. So, but if you need a drink, just flag me down and have to go grab some water for you. If you need a break for a restroom, get Chris's attention or say, hey, let's take a 5-minute break or whatever we need to do. If you do just want to use the restroom real quick and don't mind, missing part of the meeting, feel free. They're just right down the hallway here. But again, we'll probably try to take a break at top of the hour. Well, bottom of the hour, about 6:30. So 6:30, we'll keep an eye on the clock. We get kind of close. We'll take a quick little break just so we can get up and stretch, and then we'll regroup again. What am I missing housekeeping wise? I think that's everything.
Emergency exit
Emergency
is up
exit
north.
is here or behind or to there.
Follow the lights.
Yeah, I think that was everything. But again, Phil, if you need to get up and stretch, you need whatever, we try to keep this, it's important, but we try to keep it a little informal as well. If you need to stand up and stretch and whatever, then we're fine. We are live streaming, so anything you say can and will be held against you in the public. So just be aware of that. And the microphones are here in the middle, and there's also a microphone here. And so when you do speak, just be cognizant we need to have more than just people in the room here. It's a very good microphone, but it won't pick you up if you're turned sideways. It's a little more difficult. So try to speak towards the center of the room when you speak, which is why everybody's in a circle, so we can see each other and our audio equipment works a little bit better. So with all that, and ignore the camera for the most part, other than it's going to hear us better than it's going to see you. But again, we just wanted to have that available for people that can't be here in person. They can watch from home and see everybody's body language when you're crossing your legs or crossing your arms or dozing off. We'll try to avoid the latter. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chris. Thank you for just a couple of quick announcements.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the May 12th, 2021 City of Philomath Budget Committee. I'll entertain a motion if someone is so desirous. Councilor Cosley.
I move that the minutes of the May 12, 2021 Philomath Budget Committee be approved as presented.
Is there a second? Okay. I have a couple of seconds. It has been moved and seconded for the approval of the May 12th, 2021 City of Philomath Budget Committee. If you would raise your hand for everyone who is in agreement to the motion. Thank you. And if anyone is opposed, it looked like it was unanimous, but okay. With that, the minutes are approved for May 12th, 2021. Next, Chris, do you want to do the city budget message also?
I can. And this one's a little more detailed in here. So again, very like the third or fourth page in the document, just before the first yellow general fund tab, is the 2020-2023 budget message. Again, some big projects this year that's going to affect the general fund and the public works funds, as we call them, enterprise funds. The water treatment plant, the new reservoir, the intake, that whole project we just refer to as the water treatment plant project, but there's several aspects of that that are getting done. The project's been in the works for several years now. Engineering's being completed as we speak, and so we're excited for that project to come to fruition this next year. The streetscape project we mentioned, there's some street funds that are going to that project, so those are here. And then there's some street improvements. Landmark Drive is going to get a nice makeover and be improved down there by Landmark and Philomath Rental and that area. So that'll be a nice extension or a nice improvement. The property north of that has been purchased, and they're going to be actually extending that privately with private funds to extend up to their future development up there. So that'll be a nice cooperative project between the city and private development. And so again, just some big projects. I put some numbers in here on the streetscape project, on the breakdown a little bit more. Tax revenue, we are seeing a nice increase, more than just kind of our capped 3%. That's again due to new housing that's come on and is finally kind of hitting on the tax rolls fully. And so this is Mill Pond Crossing and some additional development, new houses that are filling in on previously approved subdivisions. So Heather Glen and what can I think of? Off of 9th Street on Quail Glen, west side of Quail Glen. So-
Habitat for Humanity and.
Yeah, thank you. The Habitat Homes. Yeah, thank you. So those continue to come in as well, which again expands that tax base. Looking ahead, that was the most difficult portion of this letter to write because we are still coming out of COVID-19. Overall, the city's budget wasn't dramatically impacted by COVID-19 other than some additional dollars that we received that we now are looking at projects where we can spend those dollars. And as you recall, the budget committee met here, it's been a month and a half ago already, and talked about some priorities on where to spend that funding. And so you'll see some of that reflected in this budget as well, and future projects, some of which aren't clearly identified yet, but we have funding there for them going forward. So, you know, there's a little bit, as we go through each of the different funds, we can talk more specifically through this, but overall, the message for this year's budget is the city's in a very strong financial position. Being able to be done with the general fund fee after 5 years, as the city council had requested. They made that commitment, they've held that commitment, so that has sunsetted. The council's already approved that sunsetting. That'll come off of everybody's monthly utility bill, which is nice. We've just in a much, much stronger position. We'll talk a little bit about ending fund balance in the general fund. Again, substantial improvement there from where we were 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And we're being very proactive in the projects that we're doing. You know, the city's job is not to collect taxes and sit on it and collect interest. We collect enough funds that we can provide those services, public improvements, streets, parks, water improvements, sewer improvements, all those things. And so the city, I would say, is taking a much more proactive role in that. Now that we do have those funds coming in, we're not sitting on them. We're looking at projects, identifying needs, and moving forward with those. So I'm very pleased with where we're at financially as a city, and think that we will continue to do well as we safeguard the funds that we are getting, and as we identify projects and priority projects that we need to take on in the future. So we're in good shape.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're now, Councilor Causey.
I just wanted to make a comment because I found the budget overview information to be incredibly helpful. And I don't believe it was included in prior years. But if it was, I didn't recall it. But it really clarifies the operation of our property tax system and the influence that we don't have on how those property taxes are set. So I thought it was really helpful information.
Yes, appreciate Mike bringing that with him. Yeah, and I was gonna say it then, I'll say it now. Mike's done an enormous lift on this project with the help of the management team and many of the city employees as well, even outside of the management team. There's a lot that goes into this. It's not 100% perfect, I'll tell you that right now, right? So we may identify things even as we're talking through this. You know, Mike, had he been hired, 10 months ago, it still would have been a hard lift just coming in new. You know, he came in here just a couple of months ago and it was like, start the budget. And so, not only is he getting to know a new city and how we're funding, he's also proposing a budget going forward next year. So we will identify some things in here that we need to tweak and adjust and bring back to you with some different numbers. Just know that's okay. That happens in a normal year with somebody that's been here for 20 years, right? So, but all that said, Mike's done a tremendous job. The addition of the overview, the layout of the meetings and how they go. Management's been very involved in helping scope their funds and their projects and the increases and decreases within each of those funds. So overall, it's been a big lift. It's been kind of fun. because I think management has had to be a little bit more involved in the process this year, so we've had to get our hands in there a little bit more to help Mike to, pull these things together. But I just want to commend Mike for the excellent job in getting us to this point. And it's just again, to me, it's a sign of a great hire and a great finance director going forward. And I appreciate the new look that he's bringing as well, not being afraid to say, hey, Chris, I recommend we do things a little bit differently this first year. And, we're gonna do it. I've got full trust in Mike and his leadership. So I'll just say I'll kind of set the table and look forward to Mike helping us get through this.
Thank you, and if I can go from there, to make sure that everyone understands our committee process and what will be happening. So we're going to go page by page, as Mike had talked about tonight. At this time, anyone can suggest specific changes to any expenditure or revenue in the budget. We're not going to debate the changes or discuss them at this meeting tonight. Those items that are identified will go to the staff, and they will do some look at it and come back to us for consideration on the May 4th meeting, and we will discuss it at that point in time. And then we will determine by majority vote anything that we're going to change, modify on that May 4th meeting. And then the department heads will participate on the May 4th meeting in case we have any additional questions, comments, anything like that after they've gone back and looked at it. And then finally on Wednesday, May 25th, we will have the final review recommendation and are expected to be able to approve the budget for forwarding to City Council. Any questions on that? Okay, we will move on, and I think, Mike, you're gonna kick it off with page by page.
Yeah, we got one more housekeeping.
Oh, that's
Number
right.
5.
Right, number 5. Public hearing on possible uses of state shared revenue.
Right, you're gonna have to open up a public hearing so we can talk
Okay.
about state shared revenues. 'Cause
Do I just
you
go
need the gavel.
now? Okay, public hearing on possible use of state shared revenues is now open at whatever time of day it is.
Here you go.
Give her a gavel.
6:04. 6:04. Public hearing now open.
Yeah, that's making it. Okay. The reason we do a public, ready? All right. Are we ready there?
I'm having fun.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna have fun. All right. The reason we do a public hearing on the state shared revenues, so we can get any feedback from the public and from the budget committee. And what I'll do is I will go over what how we calculate those. And if you like, I can make question number 1 is give you the spreadsheet that I did my calculations, which are tied into the budget project. So that way you can look at it next week or the next time, so you have a general idea how to do it. And I'll also give you my printout of the property taxes too. So we'll talk about that later. Anyway, the state share revenues, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that we deal with every year, and they're figured on a per capita basis, and the calculations, population times the per capita rate estimates. LOC, or League of Oregon Cities, does a great brochure, booklet, whatever you want to call it, each year on state shared revenues. I think I sent you all the link. But anyway, the population that we use is certified by Portland, their economic part of their college. And the calculation, or the population we use, is 5,682. Now, general shared revenues, that is one that still mystifies me, but they just say use 67% of your OLCC or your liquor license or your liquor taxes. So our liquor taxes are you multiply it times $18.50 to $18.51 is the tax rate that we get, that is charged out for tax or for liquor. It's part of the cost that you pay. Now they take that $851 and multiply it times 5,682, and we get 105,000 each year. We get it quarterly. sometimes we get it late. But anyway, and then the next one, that's liquor tax, has been going up. It really went up the last 2 years. It's been amazing. Think about it, y'all.
I don't know why.
I don't know why. Yeah. And the one that's going down is cigarette tax. When I started this job years and years ago, forever ago, I always say, cigarette taxes was about $15, I think it was. But I think I get my numbers mixed up. It's probably about $3. Now it's 75 cents. So, going from the glory days down to $4,000 a year. So that's what we'll get there. Marijuana tax is a state share. That's a shared revenue. It was pretty healthy, but the state decided they're going to hold back, I don't remember, 20-30% of it now and send it over to mental health, which, that's their prerogative. But we're going to get $7,100 on that on a yearly basis. Now, one that does, those first 4 that I talked about, they're going to be going to the general fund. The next one we'll talk about is the highway gas tax. Again, that's $76.42 times the population. We're going to get 434,000. And per the director policy that we have here, 99% will go to streets. Will go to the street funds. So you'll see 4,029 in the street funds and 4,003 in the capital projects for bicycle paths and trails. So anyway, that's the grand total of what we're going to get there. The general fund resource is going to be at 183,000, and then for this highway gas tax, we're going to get 429,000 for the street, and then 4,003 for that. And that is my report. Now, any questions or anything from the public?
Do we have anyone signed up?
We do not.
Okay, no one signed up. Questions from the budget committee?
I have a question. So this is the money that we typically use for support of public service agencies in town, is that correct?
So the current policy is 35% of it goes towards, we do towards those agencies. We're not supposed to be answering questions, we're supposed to be taking them.
Yeah, but, if we can do it really quick,
Yeah.
it's okay. But if it's
Yes.
something that's a detail, we start debating and discussing it, then that's when we need, that's when we say, we're gonna come back with a question or an answer to your question.
That leads to another question then. Are other portions of this money already by policy allocated to some function?
They just go into the general fund.
Will there be an opportunity to discuss about changing that 35% to social service agencies?
That's a council policy, so the council can have that discussion.
Okay.
Yep.
It says here there's a transient lodging tax.
Yeah, there is. I don't have a number on that one yet. We just started that process. I think we get 5,000 is what we budgeted. But the thing there is we just turned it over to them before I got here that the state was going to collect it. So I have no idea what the mechanism there is. I think the number we have in there is 5,000. So man, until that, I have a crystal ball I can look at on that one. I'll let you know.
I've never heard of it before, so.
Now, transient lodging tax, that's the VRBOs and stuff like that, and the hotels. Some places, it's a big industry.
The city council just passed that last year, and we're implementing it this year through the Department of Revenue. Is going to collect that for us. They're going to take a cut off the top, and the rest will come to us. And so over time, that will grow. Right now, we just have the one hotel in town, so it's not going to be a lot. When the RV place comes in, the anticipation is that we'll collect a little bit more, and that'll be money that could go towards tourism-related expenses.
Right, they have some rules on that one, yeah.
Well, that, I guess I've understood it in the past, it is a local thing, but I didn't realize the state actually collects that.
It's local, but the state Department of Revenue has agreed to collect that on behalf of smaller jurisdictions, or any jurisdiction,
Yeah, any jurisdiction.
for a 5% fee off the top. So it's just, yeah.
Okay.
Before, it probably wasn't financially feasible for us to have our own transit lodging tax, just because the overhead to administer it.
It's crazy.
But with Department of Revenue, they just take 5% of whatever we collect, and we get the rest. So.
Other questions?
And And that's it. That's all I need to do.
We get that
Yeah,
on the
you can
good.
go ahead and close the public hearing.
With no further questions, that'll close the public hearing at 6:11. Next on the agenda is the review of the budget documents and discuss any relevant changes. And Mike, I believe that's the page by page you were talking about earlier.
Kind of, sort of, yeah. What I'd like to do is to go over the book really quick. Try to do it really quick. Sometimes it's pretty hard. Because it's such a cool thing to go through. You ought to see the audit. I like doing those too. Now, one thing that I did not change in this, if you look at the table of contents, it's laid out. This is the way you guys have looked at it for years. It's like, I think it's the first page first. Now you got your procedures, your calendar, your budget message, and then the funds that we deal with. It's not quite set up into the GASB GFOA order. GASB is Governmental Accounting Standards Boards, and GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Administrator Association. That's groups that I'm in. One, I have to work under GASB, and so this isn't quite laid out in GASB order, and so it will change a little bit next year. I just didn't have time to change everything, so. It won't change much. It'll just be the order of the funds and the like. But anyway, the table of contents is what it is. And then you go. What I would like to do is go to the back really quick, and then just hold on to that front page. I just want to tell you what the supplementary information is on the very back. There's a lot of new data here. I didn't have time to do charts. I know Ms. Jones did a lot of charts. I didn't have time to do them. But what I did is the very first page you see, page 101, that shows to me that I've got a balanced budget. Bottom line is my transfers are equal, and everything, your indie fund balance or the unappropriated, everything is zeroed out. So I know I've got a balanced budget. So I gave you that so you can kind of look at it and see if you see something out of whack, or if I see something out of whack, you probably won't see those. Strike that one. And then beginning on page 102 through page 116 is basically a summary of the resources. Revenues are considered resources. Expenditures or expenses are requirements. So I gave you kind of a snapshot. This is how GFOA GASB likes to look at things. The reason I say GASB GFOA, it's all standardized. Everybody that participates in those two does standardized books. So a banker or anybody else can pick up that book. And if they know they're doing GASB or GFOA, especially GFOA, they're the ones that set the standards. If we're following their rules, they know it's standardized, and they can go to a certain page, you're gonna get the data they need. Normally, if it's a banker or an insurance people, they're going to the general fund, revenues, that's it. And very rarely do they go into the debts and stuff like that. They wanna know, is the general fund healthy? So anyway, I gave you those pages so you can kind of scan through them, so you can kind of look at, this is a summarized version. Then I think the first, I didn't give you the big snapshot, I should have. But this just shows the resources and requirements. So now, going back, let's go all the way back to the beginning. Now, I'm not going to really go into the details of how the book's laid out. We'll go through it as we go. What I wanted to do is give you an overview of what we did. You don't have this stuff in your books. The payroll. What did we do for payroll? What's our variables, as I call them? The COLA. The city council approved a 3% COLA for everybody, so that's built in. We have PERS. PERS is going to be okay this year. It's the same as last year. It didn't change. Next year, I don't know what it goes up. I haven't looked that far, so bear with me. But a lot of the data it's based on 3%. Health insurance, they say it's going to be flat. I've never believed them to say that. They tell us to do it flat. In May they come and say, oh, we had an error, it's 10%. And so I put 2% in. I increased it by 2%. The property liabilities and stuff, they were saying 10%. I didn't touch it because they've already, looking at what we've already billed, it's way too high. So we're okay, I hope, at this point. But like Chris says, this is kind of a plan. We're gonna see stuff and we're gonna fix it throughout the year. You know, these are down, this is down in the weeds. I just want to tell you that just so you kind of know what we built it on. A lot of the materials and services, we did 3% increase in there. But as Chris said, I had everybody looking at their budgets line by line to tell me, Public Works, I went through each one of them, I highlighted and said, what's going to happen here? I know what Public Works is going to do. Ken was great, he went through his, he knows what he's did. I went through mine, and I know, made my changes, Chris made his change. And, but the main, everything was 2-3%, materials and services, but then we got other changes, and that's where I expect questions will come from. So basically, that's just a real quick overview on what I did to build the budget, start the budget. Now, what I'm going to start now is I'm on the, where am I? I've got a lot of stuff. What I do is I build you these books, and then what I do is I take all the notes that I took from everybody and I blend my own book. So I gotta figure where I am right now. Sorry about that. General fund. Let's go to the general fund. I don't know what color everybody's tab is. Mine's yellow.
Right after the first big yellow tab.
Right after, we're gonna look at the revenues real quick.
Can I just point out that not everybody has all yellow tabs.
Right.
Okay.
So you're going to refer to tabs by colors, some people are gonna get confused.
Page 6.
They don't make full sets of yellow tabs anymore, so.
To the general fund tab.
Thank you, Ruth.
Okay, look at, it's a page 6, David? 'Cause
That's
it's-
what I have.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Looking at the biggest things that, biggest thing the city has coming into the general fund are the property taxes. This year, Chris said that, it grew 6.5%. Usually that's what happens. There's an 18-month lag on construction. And so the growth is starting to show. This is the first jump that you had. This is based on data that I got from the treasurer, the assessor. Then you've got the state tax, you've got your shared revenues. Then our franchises are pretty much, they're dictated by ordinance or reference resolution. I'm not sure how we're built here, but we'll all know next year. The ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan grant, the 628, that's sitting there. We're going to get half of it next year. Oh, I know. I was thinking, where is it this year? There's not a budget, but it's in the calculation for the ending fund balance. Then you get into your building permits. These are numbers that I got Miss Ruth to put together for me with Chris's help. We got the court fines, pretty healthy. My staff does a very good job of collecting the fines and fees and whatever you want to call it. And then we get into the miscellaneous income. Next year, we're not projected to have flower basket revenue because of streetscape. That project will be going on. They're going to have a new one in there with music in the parks. There's an offset in the non-departmental for that same amount. Then we get into the street admin overhead. That's what we charge out to departments for our administrative help, our payroll, Chris's time, then let's see, accounts payable and the like. Then, of course, we get down to interest, and still, like I said, feds, we haven't caught up to the feds yet. Of course, I don't think who knows what they're going to do. I'm projecting a 2.7 or 2.68 beginning fund balance for this year. I've been very, very frugal with the expenditures. The revenue's coming in fine this year, so Chris is okay. It's right. We're doing good there. Then on page 7, I've given you an overview, a narrative for each one. You're gonna find these narratives throughout. I tried to do like streets and the public works. I'm gonna go over that. It's kind of in detail when I get there. I didn't do a narrative. I couldn't find one, so I didn't have time to build one. So anyway, that's the real quick overview there. Are there any questions at this point? Because once I get past here, I'm gonna go through the other ones, kind of nonstop, and then turn it back to you, Chris, okay?
Okay,
Ben has a question.
I have several, but the first question is, what is the $12,000 planned actions? The proposed budget? On page 6,
Okay,
what plan actions?
well, let's write that one down. Okay, what else you got? You said you had a couple.
That would have been the question. So we have bus user fees, the breakdown is 6,900 from bus fares. What's the question?
I think I can anticipate that one. My staff caught that, and she said their fares are free now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's adjustment number 1. That's what, the user fees, the bus user fees for 6,900.
Right.
Have to be removed. So there's an action item for next time.
We'll look at it. Not going to get removed, but we'll look at it.
Okay, now, we'll review it and come back.
Can I just chime on to that? I got a little confused too, because on the actual like listing, it says bus user fees Philomath only, 20,000 OSU student faculty, nothing. But then on the narrative, it says 1,600 bus fare and 13,000 student faculty.
We got some review to do.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do some review on that. We'll come back with that.
Okay.
So the OSU student faculty, they're gonna start paying again?
They have been all along. There's some federal funding that's supplementing most of the bus usership.
So it does, the 2021 and 2022 says nothing.
Right. It was completely covered by federal COVID emergency response money. But
Oh, so what didn't show up here?
and some of that is where we'll talk, and some of that's tracking. Do we show it as still coming from there, just being supplemented by another source, or do we just show where the other source was coming from if there wasn't anything coming here? So we just need to be consistent on how we're identifying where that's coming from.
I have a follow-up on David's question. Were you addressing the fact that it was the plan action number was different in the narrative than in the table?
Well, it's actually wanted to know what plan
What
action
it was, but the number is different between the two.
Okay, I see that. Okay, we'll figure that one out. That's another one. Okay,
Another question?
okay.
When we talk about franchise fees, what about the internet? So are Lyrica and Peak, are they not franchises?
Let's bring that one back to you. That was pretty tough to explain.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
Bring it back.
it's kind of a political potato,
They don't currently have franchise agreements with the city.
right?
So, we can talk about it later.
I don't know, should we bring it back or do we want to, hey,
Maybe council should talk about it.
say that again? Okay, anything else? All right, Chris, I'm gonna take off.
okay,
I got too many Chris's.
yeah.
You get okay in stereo.
Yes, I did.
Well,
Yes, I
and
did.
actually triplicate, there's
Yeah.
Christopher,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's another one.
Chiming in too.
Oh, that's right, Chris.
Yeah.
I think I should form a quartet.
I'll go low.
Okay, beginning with admin and planning. I've given you a narrative on the city manager's office on what they do. What I did is I took, you're gonna see these throughout the books. I took the kind of something that Joan had done last year. She had 2 books. I blended them. And we'll get to the stats next year, hopefully. But so what we did though is we added some highlights. So, you know, Chris hired me and he got Chelsea. So little things that you can read through there. Let us know any questions when we get through. I'm gonna go all the way through the general fund. Now, what the difference between last year and this year for the city manager's fund is we're gonna get copiers. I'm gonna go to copier lease, so you're gonna see copier costs go up a little bit. And it's gonna go in court, that'll be split between planning, court, and finance. Assistant city manager would like to go to a conference, so we've increased her travel costs. And what I alluded to earlier is the music in the parks. We had an $1,800 budget for that with $1,600 spent. $200 would be other expenses. We're gonna, the Cassell system that the city has isn't really being, you know, Chris has told me this and I've heard it from staff, they're not really using the power that it has. So we're gonna get a new HR module so we can link HR into payroll. So we have a little bit more better safeguards on our payroll or HR side of it. So that's good. You're gonna see that in my budget. I always put something at one time in a one line item. You're gonna see it. That way I can pull it up next year and say, okay, I don't need to do that. It's just one time deal. So that's what happened. There's a big change in those budgets. The building permits, I go on to, I don't think there was any big changes in the building permits. I think it's pretty status quo budget. Oh, I take that back. No, that's pretty much. Chris, did you say something?
You added the part-time.
Yeah, right. That's what I was just part-time. We had the part-time city, deputy city clerk, right? City recorder.
Right.
Always do that. Calling clerks, recorders, I get them mixed up. And you're gonna see, that's right, that was in the admin or the city manager's office. It's also in the building permit. So that is the two new places there.
That was an existing position, we just renamed it. It was the assistant permit clerk, and we're rebranding that to be a deputy city recorder. Recognition of what that position really morphed into, helping with the planning commission and other things. So that's a new title, but and a little bit of a pay increase, but it was an existing position.
Okay. And if we could stop and ask if anybody
You
has
wanna do
questions
one
up to
section?
here. And I know we're getting close to the 6:30 timeframe where Chris was saying maybe perhaps a break. So questions
go right
on the first 2, admin planning and building permits. Any questions that anyone has at this point in time? 2 on my right. Ladies first, Councilor Causey.
I just wanted to ask, in each of these sections, you refer to personal services. Is that supposed to be personnel services?
Yeah, probably. It's just, you always kiss the little.
Good at that.
Yeah.
Yes and no. That's a category in the GFOA. It's called personal services. It will squeeze everything into one line. It's called a personal service, and you go materials and services. That's why you'll see those headings. It is personnel, yes, but in the world of reporting, we call the whole section personal services. That's the GFOA category that we follow. So that's these reports here. Those are set up for GFOA. These are the ones I brought straight over from Newport.
Mhm.
It used to say City of Newport, it says the City of Philomath. So I had to change all of them. Chris caught every one of them. So Ruth, does that answer that question really?
Yeah,
Okay.
On a related note then, if that is the case, then the narrative says personnel services, whereas the table says personal services.
I'll get the details figured out later, Mr. Maker.
No problem, just letting you know.
I got it.
Thank you. Counselor Lowe and then Counselor Andretti.
Okay, so we're showing $5,000 sick indication accrual for the first time. Why is that? Why have we not seen it before? Accrual?
I can answer that really quick. Those are anticipating somebody retiring. Somebody were to retire or to even leave, they're entitled to a bank.
Right.
So Chris and I talked about, we put, you'll see this throughout the budgets.
Okay.
So
We had not in the past, so
Right.
that, okay, wait,
it's, trust me, if you don't do it, you really hurt
Right.
the budget.
no, we should.
Yeah.
Okay. Counselor Andretti.
I may have missed it. You had said something about increasing the budget for copies and the linking HR into payroll, but I wasn't sure where that. I thought you said it was in the city manager, but I don't know where it was.
Counselor, if you're talking about the copier cost itself, it's spread out between admin, city manager, the building, community court, and finance. So it's kind of buried in the copying costs.
Gotcha.
And then for the
Oh, I see now. Materials and services. Okay.
okay,
Thank you.
HR module is under my. We'll get to mine when you'll see it there. It'll jump out right.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, Counselor Cox.
on the city manager, admin and planning that the city manager highlights, the last bullet there indicates remodeled city hall. I know that we rearranged the chairs to accommodate this, but did you really remodel something?
Yeah, we added the office for Chelsea.
Right.
Okay.
It was a large copy room and we made it a medium-sized office and a small copy room. We erected the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
On page 12, there's contracted planner. I was wondering if I could somehow have an explanation of that escalating costs of that and why that was. In 2019, it was 37 and now we're up to 60. Maybe an explanation sometimes about that.
Yeah, it's additional hours.
So just marking more hours?
Additional hours and pay increases. So he gets a cost of living adjustment and he's also gotten step increases at the county. Those get pushed down to us. So some of that is increase in compensation from a new employee to a now 3-year employee. And then the other is additional hours that we'll be contracting for.
We foresee that in the future as well with that.
We've already seen.
Yeah, in the immediate future, we're seeing them, and the planning commission's meeting twice a month right now to get through a comp plan, and we're still having land use applications submitted that we're looking to do additional meetings or postpone comp plan update meetings in order to have these others. So, yeah, it's necessary.
Counselor Andretti.
Piggybacking off of that, when would it be appropriate to transition to a full-time city planner? Thinking about that fiscally in particular, just because the costs are going to continue to go up with all the projects going on and the revising of the comp plan.
Not this year, eventually it may, but we get some benefit out of the arrangement we have now that he works for Benton County And then also contracts with the three, two other smaller communities in Benton County, being Adair Village and Monroe. So we get some added benefit in having more of a kind of a, something that's got a regional view on things at the county level. And then just expense wise, I can hire a full-time employee with benefits of that amount. So, yeah, right now it's cost prohibitive.
Okay, thank you.
Eventually, we might get there, just not this year or next year probably.
I figured it's not, so
Good
just
question.
curious.
I have a quick question. Did we have a city planner in the past?
We had who was contracted as well, he was part-time.
Same thing.
Jim Menard, yeah, he was part-time.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, about how much time or hours a week do you figure what it'll be this year for that person?
I think we bumped up to 20, we're at 16, so that'll be about 20 hours, so half-time.
About half.
Great questions. Other questions? Okay, if no other questions, we're going to take a short recess. Let's see, it is 6:37, so let's come back at 6:47. I've always heard that if you put it in a we'll come back on time. I don't know that that's true, but we'll see.
All right.
Sure.
So we're down to three.
Well, and I didn't know, I
Yeah, I'll check with the rest of the board.
Identify a location that we actually meet at.
But, if you got-
Well, yes, that's part of what I'm saying. I was gonna say, like, we're all connected with them.
You know,
I'm happy with it.
it.
Well, thanks for letting me know. I'll take that under advisement. Is that what they say?
Well, yeah.
Still, like, it's not, nobody. Probably should have a lot of them.
Let me know when you're ready for me to begin recording.
Okay,
They're planned ahead of time.
it says that I have like less than 30 seconds.
Less than 30.
Oh.
Mine just switched.
25,
Mine did too.
24, 23.
Meeting is called back to order. Thank you for promptly coming back at 6:47. Mike, would you like to continue on?
Could I go back a little bit and ask a question? Just
Sure.
And it has to do with the copier thing issue. And I understand it's getting paid by 2 or 3 different places, but are you buying the copier?
Leasing.
Oh, it is just lease. Okay, then never mind.
Okay.
That answered my question.
Any other prior questions or prior information needed? Okay,
Moving on.
moving on.
Okay, we stopped off at my department, finance. Let's see, what can I tell you about it? Besides, staff's very good. Been here forever, it seems. I think that I'm the youngest one, year-wise, not age-wise. So, yeah. The biggest difference that we have now, change in that budget was, the capital outlay finance equipment, that's the 4,100 I alluded to earlier, that's the HR module. We're pretty much have a status quo budget going forward. Credit card fees are going up a little bit. Otherwise, pretty small potatoes.
How many staff?
I have 3.5. Well, 3 and a half, say 3.5.
3.5 staff.
Yeah. So, 1, 2, 3, and then 4.5. And then, any questions on finance? Okay, moving to municipal.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Always that one guy. End of the day.
Fan.
Yeah.
The utility online service,
Mhm.
6,500, I mean, what is, could you explain what that is?
That is part of the credit card fees and the like. They charge us a fee each month to use their service, about $700 a month. And then we have other services. To take credit cards, we have to pay for online services. And
That's part of the utility
Like online
online
bill pay.
service? Oh,
online bill pay, yes.
oh.
As I say, they charge us a fee every month.
Crazy.
I may be getting a little ahead of myself, but just in some of the later things, like in public works, it talks about like administrative overhead.
Mhm.
So then how does that get factored in? Because it talks about how it pays for like accounting.
Okay, let me give you let me do a report on that with part of next time.
Okay, okay.
Because it's a little complicated. We basically take the administration, and plus put some materials and services and the like into a formula and spread it out over to the sewer fund. So the street, sewer, water, and so on. That's the quick overview of it. Detail-wise, it's really detailed. I've got a spreadsheet.
Okay, but like, is that being transferred, like, so that goes into the general fund and
Yep,
that's
it's a
reflected
charge for
here?
services,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, but not that here, it's the administrative overheads in the revenue.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
The costs are,
Okay.
okay.
Cool.
That way I don't have to explain that. That was pretty tough.
Council Rowe.
Thank you. On page 22 at the top, under the explanation, it says credit card fees, 16,000. And then it says credit card fees for online utility bill payment.
Mhm.
But it doesn't agree with page 20, where credit card fees by itself is 16,000. And another line item is utility online 650. So maybe it's something else. Anyway. But you said-
It's the
It's at the
same.
top.
Yeah, it's 16,000, but didn't you just say the 6,000?
Well, and it's the
There's
same
two
down
things that
below
we
too.
pay for. I should say two, there's quite a few. Quite a
Right.
few things that we have to do.
Oh,
You've got the credit card fees,
Yeah.
you've got 5 or 6 of those each month.
right.
And then down at the very bottom, you got the web-based service that we have to pay for.
Oh, got
That's
it.
a different charge.
Okay, that's fine. It's just that it mentioned
Pretty much,
utility bill payment,
Mhm.
utility online service, okay.
That's
So
our
I just
line.
was conflating the two.
okay.
That's okay. Got it.
So is that like hosting the website, that sort of stuff? or-
that is gonna be in the website maintenance. That's, yeah, you could say that. That's part of it.
It's
Okay.
the portal.
Right, like
thing where
hosting
you
like
would
the-
sign in
Portal,
and pay for the
right.
Yeah, yeah,
thing,
yeah.
somebody else does all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just takes their money.
So I have a question regarding the 16,000 on credit card
Mhm.
fees. Should I make an assumption, which is a bad thing to do, that it would cost less to take credit card fees of 16,000 over the year's time versus either charging our citizens as part of their bill? If they pay online, there's an additional fee, versus if they pay by check, we have to have more staff to be able to take the check,
Mhm.
go to the bank, do all of that. And so
Right.
that's a 16,000 is much less. And so it's kind of like the lesser of the evils if we do that versus me sending a hard copy check.
Yes, right on, yes.
Okay.
Great analysis.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll start paying online.
And I'm on page 22 in the book. I believe that the very last line of text, it says can use to pay their utility bills online. I believe that is cut and pasted into the wrong spot. It should probably go up a couple different lines, just for the record.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it goes after utility online services.
Oh,
Well,
I think it goes 2 lines up.
Right. Let's go through the options. Right.
yeah, these are 2 different documents. Okay,
Okay,
are we ready to go?
any other questions in regards to the finance department? Okay,
Okay, over in community court. Again, she's had 1.5 there, which was part of the 3.5. This 1.5 over here is plus the judge. Don't forget the judge. He's part of this, and pretty much status quo budget. I did talk to staff about the prisoner care, and she recommends that we put 10,000 there just in case we have something. The minute we take it out is when we'll get hit by a $10,000 fee. So it's pretty much status quo budget. Except for, training, she's gonna be doing some training this year, and then my part-time person, she's gonna be moving from part-time, she's gonna be our administrative assistant, so it's a title change with a pay increase. So there's gonna be training that I'll be sending those to. So that's kind of the change on that budget. And the admin assistant will also be, she's part of finance too.
Counselor Cossey?
It looks like your total administrative expenditures is picking up.
That's the bottom line total, that's the end of the administration, that's how much the administrative expenditures are. I forgot to hide that line. So,
Oh.
that's it, that's a boo-boo there, I'm gonna take care of it and hide that.
Okay.
Thank you.
very good at police. Okay, and for the police, I worked with Dave Dursky and Ken Rubin on the payroll. They know their payroll, so they have to tell me what's gonna happen during the year. I can sit there and guess, but they know what should happen. So that's, the payroll, as you see, is based on the information I got from them, plus the steps and so on. In the materials and services accreditation, there's an increase next year, and it'll go down the following year. I think there's a couple of new line items, leads. Ken, where'd you put that? You got a copy of this with you?
Yeah, I do. Well, the 7,000 increase is where we put Power DMS.
Right,
which is a
Power
new-
DMS,
That's
right.
a new required document management system that we're required to use for statewide accreditation.
Mhm.
So that's built into that. Then leads, the dispatch used to provide two database accesses for us, Leads Online and Rapid, which are two databases we use to check people's driver history and civil records and other police records that are around the state and from other states. They used to provide that for us, now they don't, so we had to contract each one of those a little over $1,000. I don't remember, I think we put that in,
We put that into
contract services.
Yeah,
That's why
Yeah.
contract services went up.
yeah, the biggest change will be in contracted services and accreditation.
Yep.
And then,
Just so everybody knows, every one of the other little minuscule changes are all those services, other agencies and stuff bill us for. And those are, we get a prospective cost for the next year. And then I gave that to Mike and he built those all in
yep, everything's built in
from other agencies.
They all
other
got to
services.
get their input this year.
I have a question in regards to, and I'm sorry, my book doesn't have pages, so it's the narrative,
Okay,
and you have extra hire for covering the front office
okay,
when the admin secretary is off of 20,720, and it shows the administrative secretary is paid at 64,198, which seems like then she's gonna be gone a third of the time, or he's gonna be gone a third of the time, realizing that that's probably not loaded costs for the administrative secretary at 64,198. So it just seems fairly
Oh, you know
significant.
what?
That's not
That's mislabeled.
Yeah.
That extra hire is wrong. That is, oh boy, that is the new code enforcement that we're gonna
Okay.
have next year.
Okay.
That's what that is. Sorry about that. Good catch, Chris. That's the narrative. That's just not extra hire. That's a code enforcement. Chris, you wanna talk about that one?
Let me answer your question about extra hire. So we have two retired dispatchers.
Sure.
That work when Shelley's gone to answer the
Right.
phone during regular business hours.
Right.
It's usually $3,000 or $4,000 a year.
Right, and that's what I would have expected.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that mislabeled there.
And so what's the code?
Yeah, so we are looking to hire a part-time code enforcement officer. In the past, this has kind of fallen on me and the planner and Ken and Dave and maybe an officer. You know, depending on what the complaint is that comes in, we kind of farm it out. And the reality is we've just not done a very good job of it. And, you know, I drive through town like everybody else does, and I'm like, you know, we really just need to, if I could have like 2 weeks, I could go, I could write letters, I could call about stuff, but then that's 2 weeks that I'm not doing my job, right? So we really just need somebody that can come and consistently field complaints, follow up with homeowners, and kind of be that good cop in the good cop, bad cop scenario. It's like, look, if you work with me, I don't have to have an officer come out and give you a citation. So we want them to be code enforcement, also kind of, you know, a resource for people as far as, hey, here's a list of people that can do yard work, or here's a list of places you could take your garbage to. So we want to provide resources. And then we've also talked about doing some positive best kept front yard competition or most improved front yard competition, some positive reinforcement type stuff. But just something that can be consistent. Again, this is, I don't remember if we're at 16 or 18 hours a week or something like that. So it's no benefits. It's just straight salary, or excuse me, straight hourly, and it'll be just some consistency in our code enforcement. And that's everything from tall grass and weeds to illegal signage, RVs where they're not supposed to be, illegal parking, and all those types of things that we get in, and they literally will just chew up time, mostly management level staff, which we want to try to focus on what we should be focusing on, and not things like high grass complaints or the neighbor's tree that's hanging over my fence. And
plus, every time we show up, we have to write a police report.
Right.
So we have 500 police reports on tall grass in our system. And that, you really don't want to be known in our system for having tall grass. And somebody like you, I mean, it's just it's a terrible kind of resource draw for us to be writing police reports on all these kinds of things all the time. That's another added time thing. So.
Do you alternate boots every year?
I'll tell you what.
The boot fund.
Every other year.
Every other year.
Yeah.
Jeez.
They're expensive too.
Yeah, that's what I was.
We have to wear, they're all the same, they have to have the safety, like firemen, the safety standard boots.
MC.
They're like $225 a pair, $250 a pair. All the same size. Yeah.
Yeah.
All kind of size.
So if you're not doing code enforcement, you could give out more speeding tickets, right?
Yes, you can. We had 1,100 speeding tickets last year. I knew you were gonna ask that. We'll do 1,150 more.
I have to say, this is a little off topic, but I was talking to some coworkers about Philomath, and they're not from Philomath, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are like famous for your cops, right?" And I was like, "What?"
Careful what you say next.
No, that's what I thought.
Okay.
No, I guess it's because
they all wear the same boot.
No, because we have a reputation for pulling over people who are speeding and DUIs. So
It's funny, like, I'll say this once and then we'll stop talking about this, but it's 50, if I go somewhere outside of, we're considered a complete speed trap. But inside town, every one of you criticizers for not writing enough tickets. But we do write 3 times more tickets than Corvallis PD and Benton County per officer. So we write a lot of tickets. It's just you don't, but all of our ticket writing is for people that don't live in the city of Philomath.
Right.
If you look at our court, it's like 95% of the people don't live here. So doing a kind of educational enforcement in town is really difficult because it's just pass-through traffic, people going from one place to another. It's a weird situation, but
It's all right.
we could write a lot more tickets. If you want to.
Counselor Causey.
Yeah.
Are you, with the 7 officers budget, your lieutenant and yourself, are you fully staffed?
That's, on paper, we're full of staff. Next year, we're coming for one more. I told Chris, we're either we're getting one more cop or you're not gonna have a police chief next year, but that's up to you guys. So, we're at
that decision real easy.
I know, we're right there where people taking time off and our call load is making it difficult to give people vacation time, and when we have people injured or sick, we're right there.
Yeah.
So we'll talk next year.
We're hoping the code enforcement officers
We'll make a
will
little
this
chunk.
year.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're gonna talk again next year.
We're gonna talk next year.
We'll lay down
Arm
the
wrestle,
basics.
whatever. Thank you.
Building and grounds?
Okay.
Building and grounds? Okay, building and grounds. This is run by Public Works. Kevin went through with the fine tooth comb, and this is a pretty much status quo. I'm gonna say status quo a lot because pretty much we're status quo this year. If there's any changes, I'll try and tell you about them if I know about them. But this one is pretty much 2-3%. We got their COLAs and all their increase in their personnel, and everything else is pretty steady. Good.
I noticed that the insurance went down slightly. I was wondering what voodoo that was.
No, what happened there is we had a change in allocation for the payroll, and the payroll, the insurance follows the payroll, so it'll shift to another department. So that's what happened there. Now, trust me, I looked at that too. And then I looked at the percentage and it shifted. So it's it went down in this department. You know what, I'll probably look at it anyway again.
Okay,
Okay, the parks,
Oh, wait, can I just?
oh, yes.
Just the one thing on the the personnel services sheet, for the custodian, is that under utility maintenance workers? Because like lists out the different employees, but doesn't list a custodian, and then it talks about a custodian under.
I probably maxed, let's see, what did I do with that? I'll have to find that. That's a fix.
Okay.
Got a question.
Go ahead, Ben.
On that building repair and maintenance, it said repairs to city buildings, but it does include 25,000 to remodel project for City Hall. I thought we was discussing earlier, you've already done that. Or is there gonna be another more?
There'll be more. Yeah, there'll be more. It's not all gonna get done this year, so it's gonna roll over.
This room needs a little bit of work.
Mostly to support the hybrid meetings.
Okay. Other questions on public works? Okay,
Okay, going to parks, pretty much the same thing there. And personnel, saying, hang on, I just thought of something on his insurance. Can't think of anything that changed on that particular budget. It's just like another status quo budget. Like I said, get used to that phrase. I hate saying it. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, on the grounds maintenance, this year you got it bumped up to 50,000 from 13, and then it's going to be 51. What's the difference this year and the new year?
That's a good question. I'll have to look at it.
Okay.
We'll come back on that one.
Okay.
So that's on grounds maintenance, okay.
It just seemed like that was a huge bump
Well,
last year.
I'll come back with that.
other questions?
Yes, I do.
Ben? Barb?
Go ahead.
Okay, I did, for the seasonal part-time GIS, it's time allocation 100% and 5%. I would be paying them 105%.
Hey, on the narratives.
Yeah, sorry. On the narrative.
Oh. It's, the seasonal is a part-time 100%.
Oh, it's two different.
Yeah,
Okay,
two different
okay,
things, yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, and part-time is 5%.
Okay,
The
okay,
part-time GIS.
okay, thank you.
And so the question I had was on the tennis court maintenance. Does the school district do anything on that? Or put in on it?
Yeah, whatever ours doesn't cover. So the city just gives them the $2,000 and then the school's responsible to do everything.
I kind of thought that.
That was what we agreed to kick it every year. And hopefully they're saving some of that, so when it needs resurfaced, they don't come and ask us for money for resurfacing.
Other questions?
Okay.
Moving on?
Non-departmental. We're not supposed to have a non-departmental department. There's no such thing. But, you know, us accountants don't like the auditors all the time, and we still kind of, we like this because it's kind of our administrative overhead. Maybe that's what we call it, administrative overhead. Then they'll complain about that. So the auditors, you just can't please them. But then this particular one, we've got our city attorney, he's on a retainer. Then we've got our audit fees. Then we have our information technology, it's within there too. What else might be in there? Oh, we got a labor consultant increase this year. I forgot about that. Council approved us to go forward with a salary study for next year, so that's the 10,000 that's there. That's pretty much it. This one's not quite status quo. Any questions? Ruth?
Why wouldn't you put the audit in finance. Isn't that a finance
Yeah.
expenditure?
I thought about that too. It probably, we could move it there next year. It's the history, I hate moving history. Because what happens, I'll pull it out this year and they'll ask, where to go? Because it's zero next year. You can't win. I could pick up the history and move it, you won't see it, so. But, there is ways if y'all like to do that. That one, if you want, we do it next year. And you got a question?
Yeah, well,
I've got a couple.
I would follow up on that. Probably the bad debt write-off goes along with the audit fees, the state filing fee. All three of those things would be financed.
You're probably right, yeah.
And I don't like the non-departmental thing either, because it's kind of like,
Miscellaneous,
it's nothing in a sense.
yeah.
And it would be better to show where, those expenses are.
This is one of those that, again, had Mike started 10 months ago, we probably would have looked
It would have been melded somewhere else.
That'll be a project for this upcoming year, and so we'll look to revise
Yep.
this.
Thank you.
But for this year,
Counselor Andretti?
I was curious about the dues because there's one for citywide purchasing, which is separate from dues to the COG and dues to the LOC. But then in city council, there's a dues section as well. It says Mayor's Association and other council memberships. So I just want to make sure that they're not double counted.
No, they're not double counted.
Okay.
But I can look and I'll bring back a report.
And also, I don't know if I should suggest this here or in the city council fund, but I would like to join the People of Color Caucus at the League of Oregon Cities, and that is $50.
Chris, do you have any counsel to Counselor Andretti as to whether she should bring that up to city council, or is it appropriate here?
no, so
That's an increase.
it's an increase, we should talk about it here. It's
Okay.
fairly minor, but
Increase council dues.
Okay.
We'll bring that back.
Anything else, Counselor Andretti? Okay, Counselor Lowe?
Well, maybe it could come out, so we have miscellaneous 10,265, and it's incidental expenses, which seems like a fairly large amount, just to say it's incidental. And so what kind of controls are there over that? Why so
Heavy
much?
duty controls. You look at that thing every month. It actually said, before I fixed it, it actually said 35,000 because,
Really?
well, some of the fingers got in the wrong place and a franchise fee ended up in there. So, yeah, there's a tight control on it. I can't even remember what's in there, but they do have a month miscellaneous expenses. I can do a report on that, Counselor, if you'd like.
I would, I'm thinking, so the question would be, could we not allocate that to a more specific category?
More than likely, I did the same thing when I walked in Newport. It was crazy, and when I left, it was down to 1,000. So that's probably where it should be. I'll do a report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This might be a conversation for a different time, but just on the note of like shifting things, would it make sense to put like the city attorney and the IT costs like in the admin budget, since they're sort of?
Probably, you're right. That's the project that we've got.
Okay.
Yeah,
admin and finance is probably where I want to
yeah, more than likely.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Van?
Well, I don't see where it was at, but the transfer, in the narrative, it says transfer to land building.
I pulled that over there by
But there's-
mistake, and it was too late to fix it. That is discussed or shown on the council budget.
Oh,
and the
it's
one
in the
time-
wrong place then.
Yeah, it's it's on the
Oh,
wrong
that
area.
particular line.
Yeah, those two items, they should be with the council narrative. So that's one thing I'll fix.
So what I would say about that is the same thing as the other things. I know we used to have it that, like for the police department, for a car, it would say, you know, a car to the land building equipment fund from the police department, and such, so that you can actually see what all those monies are. That's a lot of money that it's just going, and in a sense, you don't know
I
why.
know what you're talking about. We'll get there. That one's a long-term project.
Okay.
Okay, Counselor Lowe.
So a question related to network consultants, 63,550 provides the support for networks and computer systems. Does it also include any sort of testing of our intrusion detection in our firewalls, malware, some sort of escapade does that include that kind of thing?
We'll do a report on that. We'll bring them back.
It's come up with council.
It does, but we'll get you more info.
Great.
Yep.
It does.
Other questions?
Okay, moving on
Okay.
to council. Now, the biggest change on that particular budget, really, it's the ARPA funds. The $1,078,000 transfer out, that is for 3 or 4 different projects in the sewer project. This is at the bottom of the page. Then the 301, I can't remember what, that's probably for the regular annual maintenance costs or annual transfers for police, fire vehicles. Still network, I'm still in Newport. For police vehicles and any other vehicles or equipment and so on. I could do a breakdown on the 301. The 1,078,000, that's for 4 or 5 different projects that will show up in the capital projects fund. So we'll talk more about that later. Now the 179,796, which is ARPA projects, we're going to get a total of $1.2 million and some change. Council has directed us that we use the 1,078,000 for sewer projects, and the 179,000 will be used for projects to be discussed later, or we're going to do a survey and the like for the citizens to tell and give us an idea as how to use this 179,000. And then basically we got the flowers in the basket, that's new. Then tourist related activities, that money is coming from what we get the state shared revenues.
I thought we had said we weren't gonna do the flower baskets
Right.
next year.
But no, there's money coming in, so we go out.
Oh, wrong year. You're right, that's a good catch, I need to fix that.
I'll take some of the Mid-Valley Partnership money, so we'll talk about that. We'll want to continue that contribution to Mid-Valley Partnership, so
Just move it down.
we'll be all of that, some of it.
I have a question on the contributions.
Go for it.
So it looks like the state revenue sharing income went up by 5,000, but the contributions only went up by 550, which doesn't add up to the 35% allocation. So that should be more like, it should have gone up 1,750.
Are you counting the street, the highway fuel tax doesn't go towards that?
No, I was just only looking at the
You're just looking at
shared,
the shared revenue itself?
yeah.
So
So,
I'll look
We'll
at that.
double check that number.
yeah, shared revenue went from 62.8 to 67.3, but then the contributions only went up 550.
Okay, we'll look.
Yep, we'll look. Yep, definitely. Okay, once we're done, go ahead, Dan.
I guess I know this council thing is a new department, or whatever you call it, and that's okay. I just kind of, when I saw the numbers in it, I thought, oh, when somebody doesn't know what's, isn't involved, and they look at, oh, this city council spends $128,000 by themselves. I think that might be something that you should look at. I don't see a reason to have the bus in there, the expenses for the bus. I mean, yes, the council could take it out or put it in by their choosing, but they could do that with most anything. I don't necessarily know where it would go,
Okay.
but it kind of scares me with that number being as large as that. But not specifically to do with what they really deal with, like the donations to the
Okay,
community
do we have
organizations.
any questions? Because you're getting into this debate discussion, so,
Okay.
sorry.
Christopher.
So where are we at with the current funding for the bus? Because I know it's free right now because of our federal support. When do we have to reevaluate? How long did we make it free for?
I can bring you information on that.
Okay, we got it.
Good question. Other questions?
Okay, one last thing that I'm gonna talk about, I didn't talk about because it kind of clouds the subject. The last line item in the general fund is called the unappropriated reserve. That's your ending fund balance. We try to, the internal policy that I know here is cover payroll and everything up through November until we get our property taxes. With that ending fund balance, which has come from the general fund fee and property tax increases and being frugal with budgets, we're gonna be safe this year. Not saying we weren't safe last year, I haven't even looked. But, that's a good stewardship of the money that we've had and good planning. So I think we'll keep going forward if everything stays pretty much the same. So it's been, when I applied for this job, I looked at they set money aside. I was like, wow, that's cool. You don't see people doing that often. They set money aside to build projects. Here's another way you're doing it. Now you're gonna have a stable general fund for a while. So that's the end of the general fund. We got 20 some odd questions, so that's not bad. Pretty good.
I will just note, I know over time, but when the general fund fee was initiated, just for historic purposes, the ending fund balance was down to $89,000.
Wow.
Right, and so that's what the general fund fee and some growth in Philomath has done, and some tough decisions by the council and the budget committee is to make sure that that number is increasing every year, and we're putting more and more money aside so that we do have that money that's built up in reserve. So, and that's with, as we'll talk about next, or at some point tonight, that's with increasing our transfers out to pay for future projects at the same time. So again, that's huge for Philomath, leaps and bounds from where we were. So it's great.
Very good. All right, now we're moving into public works. Let's see what I can tell you there. The rate schedule, an overview on public works. The biggest change in this year in the rates is in the sewer rates and sewer rates only. You'll see that when we get to the sewer fund. Everything else is flat. SDCs, we're calculating that on 10 units this year. We'll see that when we get to the SDCs. Otherwise, they're pretty stable moving forward. I'm going to move into page 50. Oh, wow, I actually have page numbers.
I like it.
Yeah, page 50, which is street funds. Street utility fee, it was increased last year from 4 to 8, and so next year we're figuring a 2% increase. The public service is pretty flat with a short increase. State highway is increasing. Transfer to storm drain is going to stay there for a while, so I can get things straightened out between these funds. Cash carried forward, they're saying 356. So any questions on the revenues?
I'm just curious what the fees are for Republic and Pioneer, how those differ then from like the franchise?
They are franchise fees.
Those are the
Okay,
franchises.
so they're just
going there.
They're going in here.
Okay, but not CPI or PAC Power.
No,
They
those-
just go
those
in
are
the other way.
general fund.
So is that just a decision that's made internally with the city as to where the funds get allocated from?
Where they get allocated to, yes.
Yes.
It is. Yeah, that's just a decision that was made years ago. It could be revisited. But, there's some argument that which of these have a greater impact on your streets and
Right,
and everything
right.
else. And some of it is when the general fund is starving, sometimes you pull one out, you put it into the general fund, and
Sure.
then that's where it has stayed. So there's room for discussion there if we want to have that discussion, but this is where they.
Okay, thank you. Christopher?
For Pioneer, I know we talked about like Lyrica and stuff for internet. With Pioneer, like installing all the
Yeah.
fiber optic, does that impact our franchise fees at all?
Franchise fees are based off of their sales.
Okay.
And so if they have increased sales, then yeah, we would expect, I think that they're hoping that they're gonna have increased sales.
Okay.
But, it's gonna be a little bit before we see it reflected.
Okay.
As they gain new customers, then we'll see it here.
Okay. But that includes their internet stuff, even if it doesn't include like a Lyrica type.
Right.
Okay, other questions? Okay,
Okay, moving now into the personnel and materials and services. Personnel there's been a slight shift in the supervisor and in the utility maintenance, and also the GIS person's in there now. Otherwise, it's like they have an increase in their vacation accruals that follows the increase in the supervisor. And let's see, materials and services. Okay, now with the oil project, what is it, the chip seal project, seal coat, that they're trying to get it done this year, and it doesn't look like it's gonna happen. If it does happen, it's gonna happen in July. So I rolled it over to next year, and they've requested another 56,000 for other projects. So that's why the oil increased, or the chip seal, the slurry seal, that particular line item increased. Otherwise, everything pretty much stayed steady.
So that was in this year's budget?
Yes, it is.
This year's budget?
Yes.
So we'll either spend it this year or next year, but
Yeah.
we're budgeting for it for next year in case it doesn't get done by the end of June.
And if it by chance happens this year, I'll adjust his budget, because that'll affect his beginning fund balance.
But we did have 56, so instead of,
Yes.
it's not 456, it'll be 256 either this year or next year.
Yeah. And then contingencies is 100,000, pretty steady. His reserves falling out a little bit, so we've got to do a little bit of work on his budget. Give me a year to figure it out, and I'll clean it up.
A lot of that's at 200,000.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah,
kind of
it
double.
really,
up.
that really messes things up when that happens. That's why I'm hoping something gives either way. All right, we're working to water fund.
I have a question.
Okay, sorry.
thank you.
No worries.
On the GIS service,
Mhm.
that went way down.
Yes, because he now has a GIS staff. We were contracting with COG, and that person is now working for us, and that's where you see the 7488 for the GIS person.
Oh, okay, all right. And the other question I had was, so in the agenda, the review budget documents and discuss relevant changes, that's what you're doing?
Mhm.
We're not doing the review of the general fund budget.
No, I don't know why that one got added. I missed it on the agenda.
Because I hadn't got through all of this yet, as far as the public works stuff. I didn't know we were doing that. Wasn't very clear.
Sorry.
That's okay. So you probably won't get as many questions.
You'll get questions. You'll find them. Okay, moving to, are we done with streets?
Any other questions on streets? Okay, moving on.
Okay, looking at water sales. We did a very deep, in-depth review of the budget or the projected water sales and the like throughout the fund. And we're projecting at $1.9 million for next year compared to 1.8. I think what else? The carry forward's a little down. Okay, you'll see the custodian and the GIS part-time person's in there now. Okay, going over to the materials and services. Now, we're gonna be doing a we're gonna do a utility rate study next year. And so you're gonna see that in the, can't remember if I put that, I think I put that in I put it in contracted services. And then Kevin asked for $6,000 more for the Rocky Creek water purchase. I don't remember why he did that.
Just bringing the new treatment plant online.
Oh.
There's gonna be some additional need to tap into the Rock Creek intertie during that transition.
That's it. And then let's see, he did his transfer for LB infrastructure, the land building equipment went from 1.1 down to 800,000. He's got enough money there to do his projects. So, are there any questions?
No questions?
So, yeah, what is the Rock Creek water purchase?
So we purchase water every month from Corvallis through the Rock Creek intertie. Anytime we have to shut down our plant for maintenance, high turbidity, those types of things, we'll purchase water from Corvallis through the Rock Creek intertie.
Other questions? Councilor Cosner?
What is the workday tax? What is it?
Where is that?
What is it?
Where are you?
Page 58.
Oh, another tax that they've added to us. It's another workers' comp tax. It's based on a certain, it's not a whole bunch. As you can see, $119 each year. I think it's like a penny or something like that. It's not a whole bunch, but it's something we have to collect and send on to the workers' comp. It's for workers' comp. But we have to call it a work day. No, it's not the one that's a transit. So no, that's more of an unfunded mandate for us again. So,
Councilor Love?
Why did lab analysis go from 12,000 budget this year to almost half, coming up 6,120? I wouldn't think it would go down that much.
I did ask him about that. He feels that he's not going to need a whole bunch of it next year. 61 should cover it. I mean, everybody was involved in their budget. This is his number. So.
And this is testing the water for.
I would assume that.
We can find out for sure.
We can bring that back.
I'm curious.
Other questions? Okay.
So we'll move it to the sewer fund. Now the calculation, it was a deep involved review of it. I did it for the water, sewer and storm drain. So I won't repeat it, but we did deep in review. And then I did a trend analysis and they both came out the same. I think I'll stay with the trend doing, but it's good to do the deep in-depth look. Because that's where you look at every one of the rates that we do, every one of the services that we charge for. And when they come out to be within $10,000, I want, why did I do that? But it's a good check. So it's, we're projecting a 1.5 increase. That's a slight increase. And And that, we did increase the sewer rates, so that's part of the change there. Transfer from the SDC, that's for our a loan payment that's made out of this particular place. Again, we got the GIS and the custodian there. Can't remember if we had anything in there that changed in his materials and services.
Contracted services.
Again, that's the rate study. We're going to do the utility rate study next year. It'll be a $10,000 increase each budget. Good catch. I forgot about that.
Can you talk about what the farm lease revenue is
The what?
on page 64?
Chris, can you handle that one?
Yeah, we lease out down at where the sewer ponds are.
Yeah.
The city owns a large piece of property and we lease that out to a farmer that actually
Okay.
uses the effluent that we produce and he actually spreads it out of the
Okay.
fields so we don't have to put it into the river.
Perfect.
But we also collect. lease
And
on
we
it.
make a little money on it.
Yeah.
A win-win.
And he mows it for us. So to speak.
A win-win-win.
Some people call it harvest.
That's an annual mow.
And then you get into the debt service. That's
I think we have a question.
Question.
Go ahead.
Counselor.
On page 64 again, what investments are there that are unique to this fund?
The interest on investments,
Yeah,
they do have a cash and they do generate interest. So when I do my allocation, I do it based on cash balances. So they get a $3,000 a year from their cash balance. You'll see that throughout.
thank you.
It's the same process.
Okay. Other questions?
And then real quick, the debt service is on the back, page 67. Annual there, I can't remember when that ends. I had a schedule somewhere. But then their equipment, their transfers out pretty flat. He went down on his infrastructure, he felt 425 is okay. And that's pretty much it for the sewer. And you will see it called wastewater. We use sewer and wastewater interchangeable. And I told Kevin, let's settle down on one. Now, I stay with wastewater, he likes sewer, so
Tomato, tomato.
I can't change it. And so we'll move to stormwater. Stormwater this is third year, slowly growing. It's enough now to have a personnel, they've got their GIS person on it. Storm drain fee is per account, I think it is. And then on their materials and services, they have, the big increase will be in contracted service for the rate study. And their transfers are the same as last year and their contingency is flat.
So question on the personnel services. It's listed in the wastewater as office specialist, but you said that's actually the GIS. Everywhere else it seems to be listed as
Yeah.
GIS.
I didn't change that one. I need to fix that.
Okay. But one and the same.
They're the same one, yes.
Okay,
That
thank you.
is, yeah.
Other questions?
Okay, one last public works. Chris, you're gonna have to take this one because it makes no sense to me. Development review. Hopefully it makes sense next year. This year, Chris, if you can give a
Yeah, this
review on that.
is money in, money out. So anytime there's a new development that comes in, we charge them an upfront fee to review, to have the city engineer, to pay the city engineer to review those land use applications that come in. And then, so we'll take a percentage upfront and then that's revenue that comes in, is that percentage that we take up front. And then as we receive invoices from the engineer for those services, then we just pay those back out. So it's money that's paid by developers as part of their land use application process. It's the engineer work that we contract out.
It also pays for our engineers to go out on site during the project and make sure that the plans are being followed.
Thank you. Could not have done that.
Counselor Andretti?
I actually had a question. I was trying to find it on here from the previous fund. The detention pond maintenance, is that the mill pond? Is Mill Pond still going to have a pond?
That's probably it. He needs to do some maintenance.
Well, yeah, so there's a couple of properties where we've taken a lump sum cash payment in lieu of requiring the development to continue to maintain that or to form a homeowners association to maintain those storm detention areas. And so we'll contract that work out. Part of establishing that fee was doing like a 30-year projection of what the annual cost for maintenance would be for a third party to do that. And so that's a new expense, but it gets offset. You won't see it because it gets offset with a 1 year, kind of one big lump sum to kind of pay for the next 30 years of maintenance.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because we haven't had it before, at least on here. But so you're saying that it's not like it's multiple ponds in the city.
I think we've got at least 2 now that the city's maintaining.
Which ones are they?
One from the Newton Creek Estates subdivision, they paid a lump sum, and then one for Mill Pond Crossing.
Okay, thank you.
That's not the actual mill pond, right?
Yeah, it's not the pond, it's Mill Pond
Stormwater
Crossing.
detention.
Right. It's the ditch that's behind the houses on 15th Street, between 15th and 16th.
Thank you.
Good clarification. Other questions? Okay.
You want to take a break? Because we got projects, capital projects, and we're gonna.
Dig into.
You guys, I gotta feel everybody's gonna dig into that one.
Before we move on, can I ask a question?
Sure.
The LVE fund doesn't have its own breakout kind of thing. It's spread out across the different funds. And I'm just wondering if there was more information about the LVE fund.
Coming up on it.
Huh?
It's part of the capital project.
Oh, okay.
That is the capital
You're
project.
timely.
All right.
Timely.
I'm getting it. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so it's 7:43. So let's go with 7:58. Just crazy. I don't know. know, it's 7:58. Okay, I think we are now to the Capital Projects Fund.
Yep.
Take it away.
One thing, I don't know how long this will take us. It could take us 15 minutes, it could take us an hour. But there's two other little funds that we need to look at really quick. It's on the, under other funds.
Okay,
Let's kind of finish those so we don't run into a time crunch in case we do.
okay.
We have two funds left, besides the LBE, Land Building and Equipment. Jeff, that's the LBE. We're coming up on it.
Thank you.
Sorry, we use acronyms a lot. My last place, no, Albany, we had an acronym list for the Budget Committee, so
There you go.
I like that.
that might be something I do. I don't have a whole million bunch of funds. Anyway, we have two little funds, Community Development Fund. That's a old block grant program. We're collecting payments and we use it for a downtown loan program. But looks like we're building this one up. Chris, you might want to have to give a little bit of detail on this. I'm not quite full up on this one yet.
Yeah, in the past, we've used this for our facade improvement loan program. And we've not publicized this program a lot in recent years because we've been gearing up for the streetscape project with the hope that if there was some extra money at the end of that project, we could have a kind of recurring loan program through that, like a no interest loan program that way. So we've not done a lot with it, which is why it's kind of building a little bit. I think the last time we spent money out of this was maybe 6 years ago or 7 years ago on a paint job for one of the businesses downtown that's been paid back. So it's kind of sitting at this point. It's one that, as we come out of the streetscapes project, it's one that Mike and I'll be looking at a little bit closer this year and probably come up with a different plan for these funds.
Okay, Christopher.
If I'm understanding the sort of narrative, or I don't know, whatever this is called, that was originally to also help fix up like homes.
Yeah.
Is that still something we're looking at doing with those funds for housing, or are we only looking at downtown businesses now?
So the original loans were to help individual families fix up their homes, and then as they pay back those loans, the money comes back to the city, and then it's what we've used it for in the past has been for the facade improvement type stuff.
So we haven't made, we're not making additional loans to families for the housing.
No, if we wanted to do that, we would probably partner with Community Services Consortium and do something through them directly to help households.
Okay.
We've not done that.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
And isn't it true that they do have a program in there for that purpose, the consortium?
Probably do.
They do, and Habitat for Humanity has a fix-up program, and there's several out there do. We just, the city directly doesn't do anything with that right now.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, moving on.
Okay, and the last one before we go over to the land building equipment is the Economic Development Fund. This was the Bancroft Bond Fund from way back when, 2003. Still installed water lines at Mill Pond. And
So this is Mill Pond Industrial Site, north of the highway. The city applied for the loan with an agreement from the landowner that they would repay that loan. And they've been doing that ever since. The land is transferred ownership, but the new owners have continued to make the annual payment for that loan that paid for water and sewer to be extended out into Mill Pond Industrial, which is the north side of the highway just east of where the new storage units and the new industrial flex space is going. Bashful Bob's, and there's a boat marine center there now, and so there's infrastructure in the ground, so that's kind of shovel ready. And they're, again, the private landowners are paying the city back, and then we're just transferring that money on and making our annual payment.
Okay. Questions?
When does that sunset, or when is it paid off, I guess?
it's going to be paid off in 2029. That's when the loans are paid off. I don't know about the program or the balance of it. Money will probably be all loan. I don't know.
Other questions? Okay,
Okay,
Now we'll go back to,
now for the last fund to go through, it's the biggie. Land Building and Equipment Reserve Fund. Okay, this particular fund is, the city has been putting away money for the last couple of years for projects, they continue to do it. This way they don't have to pay for loans or bonds, those are kind of spendy. And they have a capital improvement plan that city council has reviewed and updated annually, we've done that. It identifies all the equipment, all the assets pretty much that need to be replaced, infrastructure. We even estimate the future. So, it's funded by the general fund, storm, street, and then all the funds. They put their money into that. And then it's segregated. I keep it by fund. I can tell you how much there is. It's not right now, but give me a year. I will be able to tell you. So anyway, that's kind of a general overview on it. So you were asking how these monies are, how it comes in. If you look on page 77, here's where all the money comes in. You'll see the very first line item. It says state highway tax. There's the bike path money. There's the 43,000. The bus purchase, I just left it in there. There's a project in there, it's money in, money out. If that doesn't belong there, we can move it out of there. I'm not sure what's going on with that one. Now, there's 2 LID programs, and they're tied to a project down below in the expenditures. If the financing doesn't come in, they don't do the project. But they'll do the project if the council approves the LID. So it's kind of, one's got to be approved by council before it can be forward. We pay that up front, and then the landowners pay us back over time. So that's what that financing is about there. And then the big $9 million, that's the Business Oregon grant. That is for the water treatment plant. That's what we're figuring we're going to spend this year. We're guesstimating $9 million this year. And again, it's tied to a project down below. So that's the general revenues there. Is there any questions before I get into the transfers? Go ahead, Matt.
The library fund seems like it's been going down. The contribution to that looks like it's going down every year. I was just wondering if you could touch on that for me.
Oh, you're down into the transfers?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're only focusing on the top, sorry.
Yeah, just the top right now. Hang on.
any questions for up above?
Okay.
Okay,
Now we go
moving
into
on.
Now, I can't remember who asked about specifics. We have a card in there for the admin. We put $300 in there each year, and then we have $1,000 for finance equipment. And we've got, the equipment we don't quite have plans on, but for the police department, he's got vehicles in there. He's got a plan of what he needs replaced. So that's how we're putting money aside. This year it's 102. The only reason it's 102 is because he's got a car rolling over. And we, they have a new increase. This is the first year we really put their vehicles in. We were putting 25 aside, but now the chief and his lieutenant put together a list. They know what their plan of attack is. So I think we're paying 92,000 plus the one vehicle that's going to be replaced. That's going to carry over this year. That's where the 102 comes through. So
when you say a car rolling over, you mean like figuratively?
No, we ordered a car on last year's budget.
I left the
On last year's
out.
budget, we ordered a car.
The car
last year.
purchase.
Okay.
The car purchase.
I was like, maybe they're doing some crazy chases.
They are the police.
But we ordered a car last June,
Mm-hmm.
and we still haven't got it.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
really
that's
have.
what it's rolled over to the new
Yeah,
year.
the purchase is rolled over. I'm sorry, y'all. You have to slip on, it's play on words, I guess.
If you look at the capital improvement plan, not to
Right,
run
right.
too much here, we'll look, but at the very last page there, it has the vehicle replacement schedule, which again, I'm gonna have this up a little bit, but you can see at the very bottom, we've added this whole section of the police department so that we can make sure that we're tracking how we're putting money aside for each future vehicle that we're gonna purchase. So this first year, you can see that initial 55,000 this year, plus we're putting money towards the vehicle we're gonna replace 2 years from now and 4 years from now and 6 years from now. So it's a lot hefty. Now, next year, it'll drop down to $48,000. And so starting next year, we'll just have a $48,000 per year that we're putting towards future vehicles. And that'll just be a more steady effect. So it's not like, this year the budget's here, next year, we need an extra $60,000 next year for a vehicle, and then we're good for a couple of years, and we need another 60. Rather than up and down, we just are gonna stay consistent so that we know that we're funding police vehicles and we can replace them on a regular basis, because they need replaced on a regular basis.
I have a
So
question.
it is a little bit of hit this first year.
So will that work with the additional officer that Ken will need next year, vehicle-wise?
I'm already grooming her for this. Fantastic. No, we'll be fine. We share the cars, they run 24/7, all the cars. And we share them, got 2 people use it, 1 car 24/7. So we'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully.
The plan is to be
The plan is to be fine.
As long as there's no rollover.
Yeah, as long as we don't roll over, that's right.
Boy.
Bicycles?
Yeah, well.
Okay, back to the transfers. We have the ARPA money in there, the 1.078. There's that transfer from the general fund, because that's where the money's coming from. And all these line items are programmed one way or the other to be used. So are the, Chancellor Matt, what did you have your question on the library?
Yeah,
Yes.
on the library reserve, it's going down, and it just seems like that's a weird trend, particularly since it's on the project list to
Well, yeah, the
start.
30 grand is doing, we're gonna do that this year. And so I don't know, let me look at that and I'll come back, but I'll look at the library.
Thanks.
Other questions?
I guess if I could make a comment, the point of this is to, as Chris was saying, have a steady amount going into these funds. In 2000, Philomath was considered the most, what's the right word?
Amazing.
Yeah. that too. Anyway, it operated in a most cost-efficient way. When I became a city council back in 1987, we developed a capital improvement plan, and we absolutely, when we had the plan made, we absolutely had no money to do it. And after I became mayor and we got a new city manager, this was a big effort to begin to do this. And I'm glad that for the most part, this is, continued on, because the way things used to be, I was thinking about it on the ending fund balance question, so that they would have money to pay the bills before the taxes started coming in. We literally always borrowed money from the, like the water and sewer fund or whatever. We would pay it back with interest, but when that first started, it was absolutely a terrible mess, and I'm really proud that they've continued on working on this, because it makes it a lot better for the operations of our city.
Well, and I think it also makes it better for the citizens,
Oh, absolutely.
for everyone, for the city being fiscally responsible. There aren't the peaks and the
That's the
valleys
word I was trying to come
that just impact everything from rates to services provided. So I'm appreciative of that also.
Yeah, and that's, remember I told you when I applied here, I noticed that, I was, wow, cool, they set money aside. And that's pretty much it for the revenue. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just an observation, page 79, discussion about these loan proceeds of 9,000. And then there it talks about first draw loan. Well, we have the $12 million grant, we're not borrowing, so that whole thing needs to be,
Yeah,
Restate.
I agree.
I mean,
I'll fix that.
so are we gonna redo it? That's my question.
How are we gonna redo it?
Are we gonna redo it? Are we gonna reword it?
Yes, we will reword that.
Any other questions? Yes.
On page 77, the 130,000 trans from LBE Parks Infrastructure, what is that one?
That is for the restroom.
Oh, okay,
I talked to him today, and I think they just ordered it. They're not gonna get it till July or August, I think it was.
and so that's for the city park, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's bringing it up to code with
ADA.
ADA,
Yeah.
okay.
You just order a restroom?
Become faster than space cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. No.
Amazon.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I want to
That's
know,
great.
do we have the Amazon Smile where we get like 5% of
Yeah.
donate
Oh, that would
to
be awesome,
something?
wouldn't it?
Yeah, you
That'd
know,
be great.
I think we should all do that. And then, yeah, have the city or the parks department or something and pay money that way. You know, get a little revenue in here. Okay, Councilor Lowe.
So just back in my observation with the narrative, then on page 77, also the description would need to change. The business origin grant, the 3 million, 9 million.
And I know.
Yeah, so,
Oh,
not
Yeah.
really there, but
I'm part of a finance taxation committee for LOC. I found out what that business organ grant and health benefit was, so I didn't fix the narrative. I'll have to fix the narrative.
okay.
That's what I've got here to do, and that's what,
Yeah, well, okay.
yeah, no, I've got that, Counselor.
Other comments?
Now, the last page, page 80, this lists out how we're gonna spend it for each line item. The big ticket items that we have in there is the street infrastructure, that's a streetscape, that's part of it. And then you've got the water infrastructure, which is the water project. Then you've got the sewer projects, I don't know, I can't remember what sewer was it. But a lot of these items are listed in the CIP, which is back here in the back. And also the narratives. I tried to, on page 81, the big ticket, big numbers, I tried to explain what that 1.5 is for the street infrastructure or even the water infrastructure. I tried to explain what those were. Getting back on the summit, I think maybe Van was saying how you spending this. Here it is. This is where I do it here on the narratives. In Newport, they actually put it part of the budget document. So, but I like this narrative, keeps it out of the budget document because that's a pretty complex document. So, do we have any questions? Go ahead, Counselor.
Yes, I noticed that we inserted a contingency line item and aren't using the unappropriated reserve.
Good, very good question. Because we've got two big projects going this year, I did not want to tie that up into a reserve item that I can't touch in case of an emergency. I don't like doing this, I'd like to put it aside, but this particular incident, when we've got two major projects going in the same year, kind of scares me to say, okay, what if the state pulls out? Heaven forbid, but what happens if that loan goes sideways? I don't want to be in that position, so I moved it. It was a conscious choice, moved it out of reserve into contingency just in case it's needed.
Awesome,
But
thanks.
very good question, thank you.
So am I reading this correctly that between water and sewer and street, Landmark Drive is going to be about 1.1, 1.2 mil for Landmark Drive street improvement?
The total cost, you could be right.
343,
That would be
521,
listed, I think
73.
it's broken out in the CIP, I think it's in the CIP. It is, they do have a tendency, Kevin spreads them out between the funds.
On 81,
On 77, it shows that at 932. On page 77.
One of the other discussions Mike I've had on this specifically is to break these down by project. So it's a little more clear, not only for you, but for staff, so we can track them
Right.
a little bit better. And so that's another revision that we'll see coming forward next year in the budget, will be accounting for these on a project basis as opposed to a a fund basis, so.
It'll be in the fund, but it'll be
By
real
project.
project accounting, yeah.
Well, like on that street, it does, and water and sewer, it does, on 81, it does talk about the different portions of, like the street, the 1.5 million, how
Right.
that's broken down.
Right, and it actually ends up being more than what is shown on the LID financing
Oh, I
or
see what you're
landmark
saying.
of 932.
Gotcha.
It's actually more when it's broken down individually, so just kind of a weird number. So, Christopher?
We have $0 allocated towards a bike or footpath project to be determined.
There's no projects.
So,
They're specific areas, so they have to be property fronted by US 20 or something like that, or
Okay.
ODOT property or roads or whatever.
okay,
That's the rule, so, you know, there, as far as I know, there's no projects for that. So it's
so,
just kind of building.
okay, like, I guess, so I'm just, why is this a line item if we're not doing anything and we're not giving any money?
Well, which page are you on here, Christopher?
81?
Don't we have to use some of the highway fund revenues that we get for bike paths? And if we don't have a project, it just gets stashed there. Is that right?
Well, the reason it's still there is because there's something back in the actual.
Yeah, okay.
Until it rolls off, I have to show 2 years of prior
Yeah,
actuals
yeah,
in the
yeah.
current.
But
So,
there's nothing we can do then, or, like, what, if we have, like, if we have money sitting there, what is the plan for that?
We'll do a larger project at some future date.
Okay.
Yeah.
right.
We've got our hands full with what we have right now,
What?
but you got a great idea for a project you want to do
Yeah.
3 or 4 years from now? Let's start talking about it a couple years from now.
We got him on video saying.
Right.
Yes, we do.
And part of that too was we just, all joking aside, we just updated the park master plan.
Right.
So some of that was, hey, let's see what comes out of the park master plan as far as priorities, and then let's start lining up funding with that. We just haven't had time to do that since the park master plan just really recently rolled out. And so this year, it will be starting to align some of those project priorities with that plan. And we've done some of that with, skate park evaluation and some other stuff. So that got caught, but we haven't worked our way down the list that far to find a specific project that fits all the criteria of those stuff.
Thank you.
But we will. Not this year.
Don't mean to be the squeaky wheel again on the landmark. So on page 81, under street infrastructure, it says 73,000 for the Landmark Drive stormwater portion. And then storm drain infrastructure is showing 107.5. Is there double allocation there?
I don't believe so, because a lot of this stuff comes from the CIP. I can, Chris, let me do a workup on landmark for you.
I just, even looking at this, like I say, it just comes up way more than
So the total cost, you'd like
932,000.
to know the total cost?
Yeah,
Okay, I can do that.
if the cost is gonna be what the cost is gonna be, I understand that.
Right.
It's just that the
No,
numbers aren't.
that's a good question. We'll dig into that one.
Thank you.
Then okay, if we're done with that, we got the SDCs. And then, that's on page, the narrative or the discussion, the outline of system development charges on page 83. And like I said, this is based on 10 lots for next year, and I just did a standard cost on them. Interest, they don't get a whole bunch of interest. I mean, you can't do much about that, but they've got a good beginning fund balance. It's been growing, and it's been used. I'm gonna jump right into the projects. The street outlay, we're gonna get 850,000. That's gonna be for the streetscape. The 283 is a parks project. I think that's related to the restroom. I think that one's related to it. And then the transfer of 130,000 is for the bathroom next year. or so, I can't remember what that, let me see, yep, that's the restroom. I didn't do it this year, so I gotta do it next year if we're gonna schedule. So, and again, Counselor Matt, I can't remember your last name, I've lost it.
Lehman.
Lehman, that's it, I knew it was an L, sorry, excuse me. Again, for the appropriated reserves, the contingency is $1.2 million. Again, capital projects, we got some big projects going on. I want to make sure, just in case, we've got some reserve, something to fall back on for these engineers. They love contingencies, and I want to make sure they have one. You know, these are big projects. So that's pretty much SDCs. That's the governmental one. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah.
Dan?
When there is development, I guess as I ever recall, that every one of these things would have income to them when the development occurs.
All right.
And you show several of them not getting any money.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dan, I totally forgot about it. The auditors had them break this up last year. This is the governmental type. That's why you only see 3. Those other 4 or 5, they'll be coming up on the next last fund, last SDC. Sorry about that. You'll see that if you turn to page 88, that's where the waters and the sewer and the storm are.
So what is this other on 84?
One is government.
That's the governmental type.
Oh, you mean project?
Projects, right. I'm sorry, yes.
Oh.
Parks and
Okay.
streets and what they got there? Yeah, parks, streets, and the streets reimbursement. There were no parks. Oh, yeah, there was parks. Never mind.
So that brings up a question. It talks about this on page 83 as part of the 2018-2019 auditors. They recommended splitting these. What is considered proprietary activities related to the governmental?
Okay, governmental is the general fund and street, basically. Anything beyond that, anything that's in for-profit mode, which are water, sewer, and storm, they're considered business type. Business type equals proprietary. So that's one of the GFOA definitions and GASB rules that we have to follow. The auditor asked them in 2018 to move to split those.
Okay.
And so governmental, which is everything but those 3, the storm, water, and street are proprietary. Everything else is governmental.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Good question, y'all. Missed that. That's why there's a difference in the revenues.
Right.
So on page 85, the only revenue that we're seeing on page 85 for the governmental is the park, because that's coming into the general fund. It's not a proprietary fund, it's the general fund.
General fund, right.
And then when you go to 88, you'll see all of the other revenue coming in for water, sewer, storm, and street, the other SDCs that we collect. So we collect the 5 SDCs, park is governmental, and the other 3 are through the proprietary funds.
So just curious on 88, so it's got the water, sewer, storm, but it's not listing specifically street.
Street considered, it's everything, it's just those 3. Water,
Sorry,
Street.
I said street, but I shouldn't have. Street is governmental.
governmental.
Okay, because it's generally used.
Yeah, they
Okay.
That's
So not street, but stormwater.
Yeah.
Got
See
it.
the difference between those 3, water, sewer, and storm are charging a rate.
Right.
And so they're considered being a profit, whereas street gets funding from the state, so they're not
Right.
charging rates.
Unless we can add a toll gate to town.
Right.
We should
I
have.
Which
suggested that.
Which may slow down the traffic and prevent tickets from needing to be done.
I've been there before, have I not?
Yes.
Mine's more of a checkpoint though.
That's right, it was a checkpoint.
Maybe more to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Counselor Lehman.
Don't we charge a street fee though on our monthly utility bill?
Street 2, that goes into the street fund, that's separate than SDCs, so that just goes into the street fund and we use that for street maintenance.
I'm just curious though, because we do charge a fee, but
We do charge a street SDC fee that should be showing up on page 85 and it's
Yeah.
not, so we're making note of that, so we need to put an estimate in here for street SDC money to come in, and it will show up on page 85 underneath where we've got the park SDC estimate. We'll have a street SDC estimate coming in as well.
Right. I understand all that. The question I have is, since we're charging a street fee, doesn't that then become not a governmental thing because we're charging a fee for it?
It's not enough to run a business. It's gotta be enough to run a business. That's the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, capitalism, very good, Christopher, yeah.
It's a good question.
It is a very good question.
They use
And it's
this
hard,
word.
it's still a gray area. It's, street still drives me nuts. I was like, cause I really wanna put it with them.
Dan?
On the income from SDCs, so we don't have a storm drain reimbursement fee?
We don't. Storm is all built into just one SDC. It's not split out between reimbursement and improvement.
Oh, it's in.
Okay. That's based on the current methodology, and we're updating the storm master plan, and we'll be updating the methodology, and I'm not seeing enough of that to know if that will change or that will remain, but the current storm methodology doesn't break it up into the two. So
And I can see where, way back when we didn't, because there weren't storm drains.
I'm not paying reimbursement for everything was for improvement.
Other questions? Okay.
And then the last thing on page 88 is the 1.1, that's the engineering for the water treatment. A lot of that right there, the master plan they're working on and the expenditures too, and then the transfer to sewer for the loan payments. And that's pretty much it for the proprietaries.
Questions? We're like getting to the end of this, so, you know.
I have a question about process. Here we go. If anybody has a question after this meeting, they should probably share that with you
Okay, email it to me.
between now and the next meeting so that they can be addressed, not bring them up.
Let's do a cutoff because I've got to get, the cutoff, let's see, what's that calendar?
Next meeting is May 4th.
Right. You gotta give me time to get it ready though. That's the hard
Yeah,
part. I've
exactly.
got to have it out to y'all on the 29th. So if we could, let's do a cutoff as a, and I will email Catherine, let her know. Let's say Monday, the 25th, by say 12 noon. Let's do that. Any other questions? And email me with any other questions that you got on the process, and I'll help you out. Say at noon.
Okay. Any other questions? Questions of process? So just generally, I understand I was very generous with the breaks this time, that generally breaks aren't as long as I gave. So setting the expectations for next meeting, you're not gonna, it won't be quite as generous. But it will still be weird times, just set your expectations. So with that, if there's no further questions, no further need, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very,
Not quite yet. We gotta ask for visitors' comments.
I apologize.
All right.
Thank you. We're not adjourned yet.
We're to number 9.
So,
Visitor comments.
Ruth, I understand there are no visitors signed up.
There are no visitors signed up, and I have received no comments.
Okay. So with that, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much for putting up.